Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. A few weeks ago I did a video about the best sports cars you can buy on a budget, and one of the cars I featured was a 330 E46 BMW. I love the 330, I've had lots of them over the years and I just think they've got so much going for them. Anyway, that night after the video went live, I was laying in my bed scrolling through Instagram and I saw a post from a car dealer that I follow called Heel and Toe Cars. It's run by a lad called Christian and he's based in this lovely little village in rural Essex. I think, to be honest, I'm going to have to unfollow him and then probably block his page because he specialises in stuff which is right up my street. He only stocks modern classics and I want to buy every single thing that he posts. It's becoming a real issue actually. Sometimes I have to sit on my hands to stop myself from sending him a message asking for more information about a particular car. If he posts another E38 BMW, I just don't know what I'm going to do. That night in question he posted this car for sale. It's a 2001 BMW E46 330 in Oxford green with a matching green hood. It has contrasting beige Dakota leather interior and it's sitting on these gorgeous Alpina wheels. It's only done 109,000 miles and it's got a history folder which is bulging more than an American's waistline after an all-inclusive cruise. Needless to say, within about 30 seconds I'd agreed to buy it. I thought I can't preach on a video about how good these cars are and then not buy a nice one. Even though, and I can't stress this point enough, I've got absolutely no use for it. I just think it's cool. It's a real bit of class, this. He was good enough to deliver it to me as well. So today I thought I'd show you around it and do a mini review. But first I've got to say a big thank you to today's video sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Dapper Dan. Now Dapper Dan are a local company who make and supply men's hair products and I've used them for the best part of a decade. So when they got in touch to ask if they could sponsor a video, I was over the moon. I was quite surprised though because I always thought there was some big faceless corporation based in Liechtenstein, but I couldn't have been further from the truth. They're based just on the other side of the Pennines. It was set up by two brothers who still run it today, and they spent 20 years in the barbering industry, so they know exactly what they're talking about. I personally really rate their products. I use the sea salt spray as soon as I get out of the shower. Then once it's dry, I shake some powder into it and then style it, and then finish it off with a tiny little bit of matte clay. It couldn't be easier. It lasts all day and it smells good too. They also ship to loads of other countries outside of the UK. I know lots of you are based all over the place, so it's definitely worth checking them out to see if they'll ship to your country. Better still, if you click the link below in the video description and use the promo code HIGHPEAK02, they'll give you 35% off your first order, which I think is very generous. It supports a local business and it supports the channel too, and I'm sure you'll like the products. Right, back to the 330. I can't remember the last time I saw a 330 BMW in Oxford green. It's a really good colour for BMWs, this. I remember many years ago a neighbour of mine had a 4.4 litre E53 X5 in Oxford green. It was stunning. This one's got the matching green hood, which I think really makes it. The colour of the fabric top on a convertible might sound trivial, but it really makes or breaks it. I remember years ago I had a silver one of these with a dark blue hood, and it looked really good, looked really classy. Then a couple of years after that I had a silver one with a black hood, and it looked nowhere near as good. I had a silver Boxster once and it had a tan hood and it just didn't look right. So the fact that this is green with a green hood just really works. One of the reasons I've always really liked the E46 330 is its engine. It uses a 3 litre straight 6. It's naturally aspirated, so there are no turbos or superchargers. It's totally au naturel. It just feels pure. It produces 230 horsepower and the power delivery is really smooth. It sounds great too, and even on this 21-year-old example, it still feels like it wants to go. It just feels fun and athletic. Something else I've noticed about the E46 since having this one, you know, some things happen so slowly and so gradually that you can barely notice the changes, because they happen in such small increments. You know, like the aging process or weight loss. I haven't had an E46 330 in my life for probably a decade. And what I didn't realise was that all the other cars on the roads have got bigger and more bloated. So you forget how small and dainty the 330 is. It's a really pretty car, this. I love the simplicity of it. I think it's aging beautifully. This was from a time when BMW knew how to style a car. The kidney grills, for example, complement the front end. They haven't shoulder barged the way in and then completely taken over like Japanese knotweed. I mean, those new ones just look ridiculous, don't they? They've really lost the plot. Moving around the side, it's almost as if BMW knew that less is more. This might be a controversial opinion, but I'm not a big fan of Alpinas in general. I just think they look a bit over-styled. But I do like these wheels, I think it really suits it. I've actually just had them refurbished at Prestige Wheels over in Bredbury, who've done a great job as usual. They've stripped them and then powder coated them and they look like new. They weren't that bad before, but now they really pop. Moving inside, it's a bit like going back in time. As soon as you open your door, you're greeted by that late 90s, early 2000s BMW smell. It put a massive grin on my face as soon as I got in this because it immediately reminded me of my old E53 X5. X840DYB, how sad's that? It was a left-hand drive American import, originally from Indiana. Topaz blue, beige Dakota leather interior, 3-litre petrol. I love that car. I bought it outright when I was 19, which was some achievement as a 19-year-old. And I'd only got that money through saving up and buying and selling cars. I really did love that car. Anyway, the smell of this immediately took me back to that time. But everything's really simple and straightforward. There's no complicated touchscreen infotainment system. It's a breath of fresh air. There are a couple of things that I need to do. I'd like to replace these two doors here because they're a little bit scratched. I'd also like to swap out this storage tray here for a cup holder, and I might get rid of the cassette player and replace it with a CD player. But that's it really, I'm quite happy with the rest of it. Something else that I really like about this era of BMW, and this is a proper nerdy thing to say, is the indicator stalk. It just feels really solid. I'll stop now because I'm confusing everybody behind me. In terms of what it's like to drive, I'll be honest with you, as I always am, I was a bit disappointed. Because most of us spend all our time in more modern cars, you forget what it's like to drive something that's 21 years old. Don't get me wrong, I love old cars, I really do, especially this era. Late 90s, early 2000s is the real sweet spot for me. But you've just got to get your head around the fact that it won't be anywhere near as good as something much newer. There are creaks and squeaks and rattles. You probably picked them all up on this video. Take for example my SL55 AMG. I'm convinced that's one of the best examples in existence. It's only done 18,000 miles and it is like new. But I've got to be in the right mood to drive it, otherwise it just irritates me. This is the same. That's a bit of a problem if you're a perfectionist like I am. If you're going to be annoyed by rattles and creaks and things suddenly not working or breaking off in your hand, then an older car just isn't for you. So it took me a few days to get my head around that, and now I have done. I really do appreciate the simplicity of it. I love the thin steering wheel. I also like this trim that they've used. Now I've never seen this before in a BMW. It's almost like a rose gold sort of colour, and it suits this car to a T. They're usually trimmed in black or carbon fibre or wood, and that just wouldn't have looked right with this colour combination. As nice as it is though, it isn't something I'd want to use every day. Now here's the problem I've got. I've got this fantasy that one day, if I came into a load of money, I'd buy some big house somewhere with plenty of land, and I'd build a big aircraft hangar sized unit on it, and I'd fill it full of 90s and early 2000s tat. A bit like Harry Metcalf's done, only mine would be filled with more average stuff. In this unit there'd be an E38, an E39, an E46, an E53, an early KN Turbo, an early ML320 with the spare wheel carrier on the back, a P38 Range Rover, an early L322 Range Rover in Givany Green, a Peugeot 406 Coupe V6, an Alfa 156, an early Audi TT 225, that's a mouthful isn't it, a Jaguar XJR, a Jaguar XKR, a Jaguar X-Type 3-litre Sovereign Estate all-wheel drive. Sorry if I'm boring you here, but my point is there wouldn't be a single supercar in sight. It'd just be filled with stuff that I wanted as a kid. But here's the problem, I don't think I'd ever use any of them, because they'd probably just all disappoint. So what I'd like to do is keep them all clean and immaculate, and then just go in there and wander around and stare at them. That's not weird, is it? Can anyone relate, or is it just me? I hope you can, because if not, I've just outed myself as a complete weirdo. Anyway, I think the thing you've got to get your head around is the fact that perfection is unattainable. They're all going to have their issues. They're all going to have a rust bubble here or a slight grazing of paint there. And this E46 is no different. There are a couple of small dents which I've got to pretend don't exist. I can tell it's had previous paint on the rear quarter. There's a little rust bubble on one of the wheel arches, a little bit of rust around the tail light. The parking sensors only work when I don't need them. The battery died on me the other day right when I needed it not to. This is just old car life. You've got to accept the fact that it will never be perfect. I do really love this car, I think it's a bit of class, but truthfully, I think I prefer looking at it and sitting in it than I do driving it. So there we go, a very honest review of my 21-year-old 330 convertible. God knows what I'm going to do with it. You're probably wondering what I paid for it because you're nosy. I paid $3.5 grand for it, which on the face of it might sound a little bit expensive, but you can't pick up nice examples anymore for any less. A couple of years ago you could pick them up for a couple of grand, but those days are long gone. So I suppose I can take some pleasure from the fact that it's an appreciating asset rather than a depreciating one. So there you go then, modern classics in a nutshell. They're not for everybody. I mean, it's not for me really. I've got absolutely no use for it, but I just don't want to live in a world where they don't exist. I like to see them on the roads every day. I like to see them being used. Well, thank you once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. If you've got any comments or questions, let me know below and I'll do my best to get back to you. Don't forget to check out Dapper Dan. I'll leave the link below to that and use the promo code HighPeak02. And yeah, cheers guys. I'll see you next time.